Welcome, everyone. We'll give folks a couple of minutes to arrive and then get started. So everyone is aware, this webinar is being recorded and will be posted on our website following today's event. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome to Uplifting Lives, Transforming Low-Income Energy Efficiency Programs in the Southeast. I'd like to introduce Cyrus Bedwar, Director of Energy Efficiency Policy for the Southeast Energy Efficiency Alliance. Cyrus has just celebrated his 9th anniversary working at SEIA and leads our policy work with utilities and regulators. Cyrus.
Thank you so much, Sarah, and welcome to everybody this morning. As Sarah said, my name is Cyrus Bedwar, and I serve as SEIA's Director of Energy Efficiency Policy. We're very excited that you're joining us for this morning's webinar with the Tennessee Valley Authority. For those SEIA members on the call today, we hope you're familiar with our organization and the work we do. But as a reminder, SEIA is a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization advancing energy efficiency in 11 states in the Southeast. We focus on 3 key areas, including energy efficiency policy, energy efficient transportation, and the built environment. Like the industry we're working in, our portfolio is evolving to include energy insecurity, public health, and resilience. Before we get into the heart of the webinar, I wanted to share a little bit about where we are in the extraordinary times we find ourselves in. Like you, I'm in a lot of meetings these days, during which I either say or hear about how crammed our schedules are, of how we suspect others are Zoom fatigued, and how disconnected we sometimes feel. So we're going to do things a little differently today. As you'll see in a moment, our webinar is formatted as a conversation between me and Frank, which we hope will introduce a little more spontaneity and dynamism in the presentation. I'm also going to take the moderator's prerogative now to give us all a little time and space to settle in. So if you're able, just pause for a moment and check in with yourself. If you're in a place where you're able to, start by putting your feet flat on the floor. Straighten your spine, pull your shoulders down and back, and take a few deep breaths. If you'd like to, you can close your eyes. We appear to be on the edge of a moment that could bring great change to our world in many ways. Currently, Congress is debating and deliberating considerable investments in climate and energy. More locally, many have or will go to the polls to elect new leaders for their communities. And for families like mine, COVID vaccines will become available for at least one of my children, allowing us to breathe a little easier and reconnect with our more vulnerable loved ones. There's a quote that eloquently captures this moment, as well as what may lie ahead should we choose it, which is a theme I'm holding on to as I enter this conversation with Frank. We will not go back to normal. Normal never was. Our pre-corona existence was not normal, other than we normalized greed, inequity, exhaustion, depletion, extraction, disconnection, confusion, rage, hoarding, hate, and lack. We should not long to return, my friends. We are being given the opportunity to stitch a new garment, one that fits all of humanity and nature. The quote is by Sonia Renee Taylor, an author and speaker, and has been challenging me in my life and in my work since she uttered it. SIA staff are all safe and well. We welcomed a new president this summer, Amy Shakut, and I hope you have the chance to meet or talk with her if you haven't already. Finally, while we made the challenging decision to cancel our conference for the second year, we are deeply touched by how many have hopefully inquired about its status and are absolutely committed to providing the space for connection and camaraderie that we've done in the past. Before we get started, a few logistical items. As Sarah mentioned, we will be recording and archiving this webinar on the SIA website, should you wish to share with colleagues who are not able to attend, and Sarah will drop some links in the chat at the end of the webinar. We have you in webinar mode, so you're muted during the call. But you can use the Q&A feature, usually found at the bottom of your screen, to submit questions throughout the presentation, and we'll answer them throughout our conversation and in the Q&A section afterwards. We value your feedback and perspective on what we can improve, so you'll also get a link to a survey letting us know how we did. With that, I'd like to introduce my guest, Frank Radley. Frank has had 30 years of experience in the electric utility industry throughout the country. He currently leads the Energy Rights Solutions for the Home Group in the Tennessee Valley Authority's Energy Rights Solutions organization. Frank is one of my favorite people because he is such a dynamic innovator in the energy efficiency space. There has never been a moment I've known Frank where he's not been thinking about the future, challenging his team, and developing innovations in energy efficiency programming. So it's thrilling for me to be able to sit down with him for this next hour and talk a little bit about the work they've been doing for the several past years. So Frank, I'd like to open with a bit of orientation for our audience. We're going to be talking about the Home Uplift program, which in some respects is like energy efficiency programs that our audience will likely be familiar with, and in some respects it's different. So could you kind of lay out the map of this program and get our audience oriented about its key features?
Sure. This program really has evolved over a number of years. And Cyrus, you were very involved in the program to begin with our energy efficiency information exchange. So back in really 2015, 2016, coming out of integrated resource plan that TVA was doing, the advisory group for energy efficiency was very interested in staying together and working on the problem of low-income weatherization. And so we continued to work with this group, which included SIA and other advocacy organizations, local power companies, state energy offices, the Tennessee Valley Public Power Association, and others, academia, to see what we could really do to create a sustainable approach to low-income weatherization in the TVA service territory. That was our real goal, weatherization and education. And so the Home Uplift program that we have today really got its genesis there as we began to work together and understand the problems. And it became apparent right away that as we all know, this is a huge problem. There's probably 40% of the families, roughly, let's say, across the Tennessee Valley, who could qualify for the weatherization assistance program. So if you think about, 200% of poverty level or below, we have a huge population that could qualify for that program. Secondly, housing in the Southeast and certainly in our territory tends to be older and more inefficient than housing in other areas. We have lots and lots and lots of single family homes that are highly inefficient and really need a good bit of repair and upgrading to make those families comfortable. So we start there. So what we said was TVA needs to be able to do our part in this, but we're going to need partners. We're going to need help as we decide how to do this. And the first thing we did was build a system for the state of Tennessee's weatherization assistance program so that they could operate the weatherization assistance program more efficiently. we had the know-how and the existing systems that we already had. We said, well, let's just build one there that's cloud-based that can do that. So we started there. That was kind of the first thing. And then we began to try to understand how we could create this program to be able to actually do more homes across the valley than could be done in the weatherization assistance program. So that was the genesis of the Home Uplift program. It is different from some. It is a matching program. So TVA puts up dollars and resources, and then our local power companies that are our customers can opt into the program, but they need to either find matching funds or have matching funds for TVA to be able to move forward. We have a rather unique arrangement with a community development financial institution pathway, which operates the Pathway Home Uplift Fund, where those funds from either a local power company or it could be from a state energy office or other governmental or nonprofit can be deposited and then matched with TVA dollars. And there are several reasons for this. The first one is, since we are a federal entity, people really can't we really can't apply directly for grants. We always need to be working with a nonprofit in the community to be able to do this. So what we wanted to do was just build a mechanism where we could do this really efficiently, and it has really worked great for us. And I'm excited about where it can go. We've been able to secure grants from the federal home loan banks, from the energy offices, from trade organizations, and a number of others. We've also, of course, local power companies have contributed directly as well, and they're able to do that. And that was one of the prime things we had to work through, was how regulatorily we can do this in a way that doesn't run afoul of any other TVA regulations. And so it took some unique work to do that. Pathway is a great partner. They already operate the Energy Efficiency Loan Fund for commercial and industrial that TVA and the state of Tennessee are part of. And we worked across our regulatory and our legal departments to kind of make sure that we could create a mechanism here that was going to satisfy all of the regulatory requirements that we would have with our customers. And it all came together about 2 years ago, about 2 years ago. And then of course, COVID hit. And so we were out, but then we got back in the field. But that's the genesis of the program. It was really built out of that stakeholder group. There was a growing recognition on our part that we needed to be in this market anyway. The upper end of the market had been served very well by local power company programs and TVA programs, but the low income market had not.
That's fantastic. Yeah, no, I recall those conversations and then the slow unveiling of the program.
Right.
I think what's fascinating about Home Uplift is, first of all, the philosophy of partnership, right? It brings utilities together with other local partners from my perspective, having worked in this space for about 10 years, is quite unique. And so I'd like you to talk a little bit more about, I think our audience would be interested in hearing some of those details. So you are problem solving around how to get more dollars into these homes, right? And so TVA do its part. And one thing I hear in working in this space is this isn't utilities' responsibility alone. And we absolutely agree with that. And we are working to try to figure out different funding streams. I call it knitting the quilt, kind of putting the whole together to provide these benefits. But talk a little bit about, I mean, I'm sure audience members are curious, well, how do local power companies, generate the funds to contribute to the program? Can you talk about a couple of examples of how
Yes.
agencies did that?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And there are a number of ways. For instance, in one case, we worked directly with. They were able to work with a housing authority that had dollars for this type of work that could be matched with TVA dollars and our contractor network and our advisors to be able to do, double the amount of work that could be done this was in a multifamily complex, actually. So that's one way it can be we can partner with a local entity that is in this space that has some dollars available, and then we can leverage those dollars and we can do a lot more than we would be able to do that. And then other ways, but they can actually, a local power company can actually contribute directly to the fund if they choose to, up to a de minimis amount that is defined for this program. So what TVA does, what we do is we allocate it at Energy Right. We allocate dollars for every single local power company based upon their total electric revenue. So we allocate dollars across the board. And then there is an opportunity for local power companies either to find a match or match those dollars. They can also, if they choose, and some do, absolutely, put more dollars in there than we are matching. And then, if we do this first round and we have dollars that were not used in other areas, then we'll reallocate and we'll match those dollars. To the extent that we can, all the way up until we've allocated every dollar that we have available for the program. So usually there's kind of two rounds of this. There's an initial round, which is really happening right now at the beginning of this fiscal year, and then there'll be a little later on in probably Q2 another round that would have this. And we got a question here. Gary Garrett is asking in the chat who the financial partner is. It is Pathway Lending. They are a community development financial institution, CDFI. They are based in Nashville, and we have worked with them in the past. So I wanted to make sure that he got that information.
Thank you.
But yeah, that's so there are a wide variety of ways that people our local power companies can participate, and the local power company needs to participate for us to be able to be working in the program. In the case of federal home loan bank funds, when we're applying for those, we need to be doing that with a nonprofit in the community that is in this space already. So we've worked with entities like that, like MDHA in Nashville, for instance, and then there's a whole different mechanism that has to be managed through that. So here's the thing that everybody needs to remember. All of these funding sources come with, as you know, Cyrus, being in the nonprofit world, they come with different reporting requirements, different eligibility requirements, different processes for how you are reimbursed or how reimbursement works. So you've got to be really nimble. And we felt like we needed to have a partner who could help us manage that, because the management of the funding really is a complex, particularly when you're blending funding in different projects. You really need to be working with an entity that can help you do that.
Mm-hmm. And so Pathway is that partner who kind of
that's right.
Those gears turn together to help the whole machinery operate. Yeah, and I'll just add to that, just based on my experience. And Frank, I'd love you to kind of follow with your thoughts. A lot of these partnerships had been built as before the program kind of arrived in its wholesale form. Mm-hmm. And so talk about, you relied on existing partners. Did you also build new relationships as the program launched and you found new needs? Mm-hmm. Or did you feel like the relationship building you had done in the previous years, took care of that?
No, we were always looking for new partners. I'll give you some examples. But first of all, we were lucky in the case that we had existing partners that we could begin to work with. So we had a really nice foundation to start from entities we've worked with in the past, the state energy offices, the Pathway, for instance. But we're always looking for opportunities to expand that network. So for instance, we are really interested in working with Habitat for Humanity and have been consulting with Colleen Dudley, who is the state director here in Tennessee, how best to do that. We're getting ready to meet with Habitat in Kentucky as well. Habitat, for instance, in Memphis runs an aging in place program. So they are working with very much the same residents that we are, and they can do things with their money that we can't do. So, for instance, if we go into a home and it needs an entire roofing system, not just roofing, but trusses, the whole works, decking. Well, they can do that. We can't. We can only spend about 10% of our budget on health and safety, so they can go in and do that. And so here's a home that we would otherwise. We're still working on this, so it's not out there yet, but we're trying to get this worked out. So imagine you have a home that otherwise you would have to defer, but if we can work through their existing program and that individual applies for their program, they can potentially get that piece fixed. Then we can go back in and do the work that we need to do on the weatherization side, so we can go ahead and insulate that attic and seal up everything and that we would ordinarily do in a job like that. So that's an example of how we can create those partnerships. For instance, in Nashville right now, we just concluded an MOU with Goodwill Industries, which has another issue that's big on our minds is workforce development. What the number one thing that our contractor network tells us keeps them up at night is not getting work. It is keeping good people so they can do the work. So Goodwill Industries in Nashville runs a 4-week basic construction skills class. They do about 8 of these a year. They have a big complex out on the western side of Nashville, and we worked with them to put a training facility inside their warehouse facility there. So much like we did in Knoxville with Community Action Committee there. So there is a training house built in there where we can train auditors, inspectors, contractors, but it can also be used to introduce their students to building science fundamentals and practices, give them an introduction. This is our vision. We're still working on it. Given our vision to then be able to connect those students as they complete that work in that program with contractors that we have doing work in the area. And these students are coming from underserved minority communities, so it's another way to also work with the communities that need that job assistance as well. So there's a couple of things that we think we can work on. We've got some questions coming up in the chat I see over here. How do you want to handle those? Should we just look at them now, or?
Well, I think Tamara asked one that's kind of relevant to we're having, and then we can kind of get into the program design fundamentals, which I think will address the cost issues. So Tamara's asking you've talked about kind of expanding beyond what we think of as energy efficiency and weatherization to free weatherization and structural issues. So Tamara's asking about is there a human element to it? Are there social resources that are brought to the table, and how does that work?
Yes, that is the vision. We're working to try to create a network where, since we're in the home and we have that initial contact, where we can, if we see other needs that the family has that are not being met currently, how can we refer families to the correct resource to be able to get that help? We are hoping to do we are doing a pilot on that as well. We're just at the very beginning stages of putting that work together. We've been working with Ellen Tone on that with One Touch. So that's you must be familiar then, exactly. And we know that there needs to be a holistic approach to helping these families. Weatherization is a piece of that, and that's what we do, but there are other services that these families need. Very proud of our Office of General Counsel, which is working with legal aid across the Tennessee Valley to provide pro bono legal services to families in need of those kinds of services too. So it's not just our weatherization folks over here in the Energy Right that are doing that, but it's a need that we recognize across the company. So that the question is very to the point. There has to be, you have to look beyond just our narrow mission when it comes to the energy side of what we're doing. It's very important as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. One more question on the partnership front, and then
Yep.
I'll invite you to kind of just talk about the nuts and bolts of the program and your
Sure.
experience over the past couple of years. But if there are partners in the audience that are interested in getting involved, can you talk a little bit about, how that might work, what they should do next, what types of partners you might be looking for, anything like that?
If there, and I'll bet there are in this audience, partners here are looking to get involved, I would just urge them, just reach out to me directly. Let me just say it this way. We started when we were thinking about partners saying, well, who can help us with the physical structure itself, right? And then, but then from there, we are like, okay, well, where does it need to go beyond that? So if it's food insecurity or whatever else it is, then we would love to talk with you. And there could be a real opportunity there. If it's training, if you're in the workforce development area, absolutely. And also, I would put this out there too. We recognize there are communities that we are not reaching effectively. Particularly, it's the Hispanic community. Were not. We could see in the homes that we were reaching that we were absent. So we are working with Centro Hispano in East Tennessee to develop the approach to be able to recruit more families into the program. There are other communities we're not reaching, and we need to understand how we do that more effectively. And as you know, the Biden administration has issued a number of executive orders. One is the executive order on racial equity and serving underserved communities that all federal agencies are looking at right now. And we've identified a number of barriers that in the program we already have that we need to address going forward to expand to make sure that we are equitably serving all the underserved communities in the Tennessee Valley.
That's a great reminder. I often forget to think of you as a federal agency, so it's good to hear that y'all are right here, and we always think of those far away in DC, but we got a big one right here. So with that, I think our audience is chomping at the bit to hear a little bit about the program design itself. As I
Sure.
In my opening, there are things that probably people are familiar with. There are things that are, I think, more in the emerging space. So I'll let you talk about the program.
Okay. Well, I've talked a lot about the funding side of that. So just in the mechanics of the program operations, we have a third-party program implementer, that's Clear Results, who we've worked with for many years now and developed our market rate side of our programming in the past. That's been quite successful. So we have a network of trained BPI certified advisors and inspectors already, call center, back office, billing, all the systems that you need to be able to run a program across 80,000 square miles. And we are doing that already. We were doing that in the market rate side with 153 local power companies already. So we had a lot of infrastructure already in place. We also operate programs here. It's kind of interesting. I think it's a little different from what you'd see anywhere else. We have two models that we use. So one is we can work with the local power company, and Clear Result can provide a turnkey program delivery, or we can do what we call local power company delivered, where the local power company staff themselves is the delivery agent to their customer, and then TVA and Clear Results support in the background with contractor management, all the systems, logistics, all of that stuff. But the staff themselves that is doing the work with the local power with the local power company's customer is local power company staff. So we have kind of two delivery models that we use to do this. And so the program itself is modeled heavily after the weatherization assistance program. So we're going in, we're doing a pre-screen, we're doing a diagnostic audit on the home. We're writing a work order for the work, and then once all of that is completed, we're doing a full inspect on the back end of that. But there are some differences. We also do resident education as part of this. So we want to make sure if we're working in a home that the family there can get the most out of the things that are being done. So there needs to be some basic energy efficiency training that's done along with that. We've done it in workshop settings. We've done it individually. COVID kind of slowed some of that down, but we're ramping that back up. So that's the mechanics. Now, the things that are different are we have a lot more flexibility in how we can apply the funding. So on the weatherization assistance side, you can't always replace an HVAC system that's old. Sometimes you have to repair it. We have the ability to repair to replace those. So we're not worried. We are not worried so much about a savings to investment ratio. We're more worried about, okay, what does the house really need? Let's just do what it needs. So typically our spend is, around $8,500. It's probably going to be where prices of materials are today, around $9,000 in actual dollars going into the home. So that's not overhead costs or any of that. That's the amount of money that's actually going into the home in upgrades. And that's kind of what we try to shoot as an average. Some homes are more, some homes are less. It depends on what the home needs, but we try to balance it out in that regard. And so the way when that work is done, the way that the funding model is set up is then TVA pays for the entire job through Clear Result to the contractors, and then settles. Then there's a settlement with the Home Uplift Fund on the backside of that. So that's how the match gets applied. In most cases, that's how it works. So in some cases, no money changes hands at all because we're working with a partner who's doing X amount of work in the home anyway, and then we do the other work, and so it can work that way as well. But that's the basic mechanics to the program. We recruit in a number of different ways. And in some cases, we've simply just taken waiting lists from the community action agencies that operate the weatherization assistance programs. Many times they have far more people applying than they can help, and particularly because of the way the weatherization assistance program is structured with priority points. So you can apply for the program. Someone could have applied 2 years ago, 3 years ago, but keeps getting bumped out because somebody else applies that has more priority points. They have issues in the home that give them more priority points. So some people just never get served. And so one of the things we looked at and we've been able to do is just give us that slice there that is rolling over year to year simply because of that situation, and let us work with those families and get that work done there so that ultimately they do see that work done. We've used Vista volunteers out in the community to go door to door. We've run events at community centers to sign folks up. The interesting thing is once working with a local partner, because you got to get past this piece of, is this really real? Are you really going to go do this work in my house? And is it really going to be free to me? Because there's a lot of skepticism, obviously, you can imagine. So working with a trusted local partner is essential in a lot of cases. But once the proof is out there, then typically what happens is you'll have in a neighborhood a champion for the neighborhood. There's always somebody in the neighborhood who knows everyone and is looking out for everyone. And then the word of mouth is huge. So that's really what there's lots of ways of doing it.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. We've got a couple questions in the queue. Before we get to those, I just want to touch on a few basics. Can you
sure.
About the kind of average savings you're seeing as a result of these investments?
Yeah, if you look at so a lot of these homes have gas in them and electricity. So we're a fuel neutral program. That our intent is not to electrify everything. Of course, if somebody wants to switch, that's fine. But typically, it's about 3,500 kilowatt hours a year, 350 to up to $500, which is for these families a lot of savings. One of the things, and we've seen that, one of the other things that we've been doing ever since we started doing these pilots was working with 3 Cubed in Knoxville to study NEIs, particularly around health. And so they have conducted, a pre-screen with the families, and then a year later come back and then do a post, and then we have a control group that we do the same thing with. And what we found is that overwhelmingly people are once this is done, are able to manage their energy costs, which is a big objective. But beyond that, they see huge improvements in thermal stress. It's big percentages versus control. It's not hot, it's not cold. We see that. We see statistically significant declines in medical intervention that occur as well, simply because the families are more comfortable in their homes. One thing that is still a little conclusive for us is the overall effect on respiratory health. And that is because we didn't, in this program, target families who had family members with COPD or asthma. We just do a wide net. So we need more sample size there. And the next phases that are about to happen are a much bigger rural study is going to be done to be able to include that with the metro. And then I think we will be getting to get what we need, and we'll ultimately do a meta study pulling all this together. We're also working with TenCare. 3 Cube is working with them directly to.
So Frank, before you get into that, we kind of wandered into the health element of home uplift, which first you mentioned NEIs. Can you define those for our audience who may not be familiar?
Sure. Non-energy impacts. You'll also hear a lot of discussion about social determinants of health. But in non-energy impacts, we're thinking about with disposable income, ability to buy necessary medications, food security, mental health, because of the stress of living in a home you can't pay for. The utilities on obviously provides a lot of mental stress. So these things that surround, that are not a direct energy benefit, but they are other outcomes that occur from the work that's being done, and they all have very high value. And this work's been done in the Northeast, and I think in the West too, but none of it had really been done in the Southeast in any real definitive way. So this work that we're doing, to our knowledge, is the first really in-depth clinical study of this to really define these.
So health, we talk about it with respect to energy efficiency. Y'all have been doing it for a while. Talk about what inspired you to go there, and talk about how that's integrated in the program delivery.
Sure. So, what really started us down this path, this has been a very hot topic for several years now. And in fact, Cyrus, back when in the good old days when CEO would have conferences there in Atlanta, this was one of the things that was very, very much on everyone's mind a few years ago when those were going on. And so it's not a new thing, but it's something certainly that, we got really interested in because of the potential to partner, particularly with healthcare organizations. But the first thing that we thought was, well, look, we have to understand what the business case really is in the Southeast for this, and it needs to be built on, Southeast data. It needs to be. It's great to be able to point to something in Massachusetts or what have you, but we really need to do it in this area with the kind of climate we have, with the kind of housing that we have, with the kind of health issues that we see in the Southeast. And so that led us to start working with 3Cubed, who's done this kind of work in the past, to just start investigating this. And that's what we're trying to really do. The first step of this, we've talked to managed care organizations and what have you. The first real step of this is we need to have the data that has been peer reviewed, that has gone through all of the research protocols that you have to go through to do research with human research, and be able to really understand where the value is and who at that point might be it might be valuable to, and who might be a partner. Again, it all goes back to what we talked about at the very beginning. This is all about building partnerships. And this has been a very hot topic. Can healthcare play a role in healthy home, as you know? And then sort of how do we fit into that picture? And what's that opportunity look like? That really kind of led us down this path to discovery. And that's the thing, as you start down any of these things, they begin to open out into other what about, right? And that's how it happened.
That's fantastic. Yeah, no, I love that part of the story. I want to acknowledge folks have taken some time to put in some questions. So Frank, why don't we go and kind of clean up what's in questions. I'm going to start with another one from Tamara. Do you have a list of equity metrics that you can share?
Yes, we have. We have. I'm trying to think about how we would do this. We have demographic data. We have that certainly. We have the data on. We have NEI data as well. I think that we will have a better set of what I would call equity metrics as we go forward. Those are not as well developed, I'll be perfectly honest. And that's part of the work that we want to do as part of the initiatives with the Biden administration and the executive orders that we have. We know, I mean, we started where we could start, and now we kind of know we are really. I think we will develop that out of this discussion that we're having about barriers. Just as I mentioned before, we know just in the populations that we are reaching, we're not reaching every population that we need to. So that's certainly going to be a big metric for us, is how broad are we going? How deep are we offering everyone the same opportunities? But those metrics could also need to be around, is our contractor network diverse? Right. It's great to be doing this work in diverse neighborhoods, but if you're not doing it with diverse contractors, then something's missing here. And so for instance, we worked with the Tennessee Urban League affiliates to recruit contractors into our network because we needed them. We did not have a diverse network, and so those would be the kind of things we would be looking at to have in those types of metrics, equity metrics.
Wonderful. And on that point, Keely asks, are you connected with the American Association of Blacks in Energy, AABE, from either a national or local chapter level?
The American, I'm sorry, what was that? You broke up for a second.
Sorry, the American Association of Blacks in Energy, AABE organization with local chapters.
TVA certainly is. I'm sure that we could do a better job connecting with those chapters locally as well, and probably need to look into doing that. But TVA it certainly is, yes.
Wonderful, wonderful. We can provide folks with ways to get information to you, Frank, after the call.
Yeah, love it, love it.
We have a kind of mechanics question here.
Yes.
Do you use a particular software platform for TVA, community lending partners, and contractors to interact or talk with one another to perform the upgrades? And if so, can you talk about how much time is spent managing that from your perspective?
Oh, okay. Well, okay. So we already had a large platform that we used for our market rate programming. And so we built off of that. There is now a home uplift platform that's built from that primarily at this point is used operationally for the work that we do in the field, and the contractor interaction with that, and the enrollment, et cetera. So that's kind of where we are today. The work that we're doing with Ellen Tone is to really understand how we can integrate another piece in there, which would be more of a partner referral back and forth system. The other thing that we can do too is we can give partners direct access to so if you're a partner and you needed access to the system that we already have to be able to do the work back and forth, you can get access to that system to do it. The system is pretty flexible, and we continue to work on it all the time. It's just if you're running something like this, you really have to have that kind of logistics set up to be able to effectively operate. It's it's a part of it's a piece of what we have to do with every program. But the good news is we don't have to build something brand new for it. We already had a pretty robust system, and we're just able to create another set of portals on it to be able to operate this piece of it.
Fantastic. And Jeremiah asked a follow-up question: how do you verify completed work by the contractors?
Okay, so there's a queue. Well, there's a full test out at the end that Clear Result does as well. So once the work's done, we're back in the home to do another diagnostic test out on that home, and then on top of that, D&V is our third-party independent evaluator. So they will in this program, just like any other program, they're going out behind us and sampling work there as well, because the ultimate value ascribed to the job and is really needs to be independently verified. And so that happens on all of these. That's one of the things I can say that I think we can offer partners that may be a little different is we have tremendous amount of data and reporting that we can do. So it's we have the ability to do that and the knowledge that it's going to be independently verified. I won't just bear our word for it.
Got it. Great, thank you. While we're on kind of in this space, can you talk about the overall size of the program? What is the annual goal for homes and participants, and what is the annual budget and anticipated partner?
Yeah, so basically, our budget was around $11 million last year. So if you think about doubling that is what we always want to do, and then we've got around 12 million in the budget this year. It's growing just a little bit. We got some costs. So we're trying to, this year we should do, let me think, we did 768 homes last year in 6 months. I'd like to see us double that this year. The interesting thing is it's not so much the money, it's the infrastructure. I mean, it's the boots on the ground. It's just the people that we need to do this work, to do the the auditing and the inspection do not grow on trees. There's not, they have to be trained. They have to be certified. So just with all the money that's coming down from Washington, we're all thinking about how do we get more people out there that can do this work and more contractors who are qualified and trained to do it. But yeah, so this was a level in the last integrated resource plan that we did. We call it kind of level 2. We're at right now. But we're trying to leverage, like I say, for every TVA dollar, we want to leverage at least one, and would love to be able to leverage more than that, and think the opportunities are out there to do that.
Wonderful, wonderful. We have a question about the relationship with the federal weatherization assistance.
Yes.
So you built this kind of in that to kind of act similarly in many respects as the federal requirements. The question is about kind of a conventional model for expanding delivery of the weatherization assistance program. It's for utilities to invest dollars into that program to just grow it. So can you talk about the pros and cons of your model with Uplift, kind of deliver through TVA versus kind of delivering it through the community agencies and weatherization infrastructure?
Happy to do that. So first of all, what we find is, and I'm just going to be honest about this, not all community action agencies are created equal. A lot of them struggle to get this work done, and a lot of them, because that are heavily rural, don't have, they may do 5 houses a year and that's it. And they don't have the dedicated auditors and the things to do that. So yeah, I know that there are a lot of programs that do that, but what we chose to do, particularly with Tennessee, was to provide training, platform, and assistance. And we actually have been assisting the city of Memphis in doing audits and inspections there, particularly inspections now, for some time. And I think the best way we can help the agency do this is to be able to provide ancillary resources to them to be able to do more as federal funding materializes. That's one issue around that. The other is it's simply that this is it's just part of TVA's mission. It's part of TVA's mission to ever since 1933. I mean, we have a responsibility to be helping people in the valley directly, and our local power companies as well want to help their customers directly. And so for those reasons, we feel like it's important for us to have our own initiative to do this. That is a TVA initiative, and in association with the local power companies.
Thank you. Thank you. Sarah, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we've covered all the questions I've seen posted in the Chatter Q&A. I invite obviously the audience to submit more. We'll answer as many of them as we have time for. But in the meantime, while folks are maybe thinking about that, Frank, I'd like to, we've almost run out the clock, which is not surprising. This is a robust program. There's a lot to talk about. I think there are probably a couple more webinars worth of material in this, but talk about where you're going. What's next? You and I were chatting before the webinar started about what's going to happen, what's going to come out of Congress. Y'all already had plans well underway before that. Just give the audience a sense of what the next few years are going to look like for TVA and this program.
Sure. So just what's happening is internally is that we have shifted a lot of our resources, particularly our human resources, our staffing, and to this effort. And in fact, energy burden reduction is one of our goals. It is a major goal. Some would say a North Star goal for the work that we do at Energy Right, that and carbon. And those are very important goals to us. Other things are happening too, because we haven't talked about the commercial space, but my colleagues there are launching School Uplift, which is a program that's going to help schools in distressed areas be more energy efficient. That's just getting off the ground right now. They're looking for 110 schools, and they're in the midst of that. They have another initiative that they're beginning to roll out called community-centered growth, and it is around how do we work with communities that have existing or potentially new buildings that could bring new services in to the residents there, but how can we work with them on the energy efficiency side to make sure that and with again with a lot of partners to make sure that we are building the business community that serves the communities that we're working in as well in this regard. So it's not just residential. It is what can we do in the commercial space as well. It's workforce development. What can we do there? Again, that's a big focus for us going forward. And then we're all looking to Washington, and I think there was some good movement today. I've heard anyway that things are getting closer, and our focus is on how can we assist with states as this money begins to flow from Washington. How can we help facilitate the ability to absorb it and get the implementation done? All of us, who went through ARRA know that it's not just, it's great to have the money, but you also have to have the resources on the ground to absorb that and be able to efficiently apply it. So we're hopeful that we can work with our partners at the state and federal level to be able to do that.
Got it. Thank you. We've got two quick questions, and I think we have enough time for you to briefly answer both of them. One is a clarifying question on your next annual goal. I understood that to be you're aiming for 1,500 homes approximately 1 year's time frame.
Yeah. Right now we have I think 1,100 and change that are in our production schedule now. But if we can keep the production at the level that we had over the last 6 months, I think we'll do better than that. I think we'll get more. I think we'll be more than that, but probably 1,500. That's what I think.
In about 30 seconds or so, could you comment on your thoughts about adding solar to the mix when you do these homes? What would motivate or prevent TVA from doing that?
That's right now, that is not in our sights. It's just for a variety of reasons. One of the things we have another group inside Commercial Energy Solutions that does the solar work. We have offers out there there are many of our partners, local power companies, are doing flexibility deals right now. But right now, our focus is not solar on these particular homes. And I'm just going to give you, this is my opinion, and you can take it or leave it for that. But there are way more efficient ways to give people the benefits of solar than putting it on their roof. And I think that's where we ought to be spending our time, is thinking about how to get the benefit of solar to every resident, but doing it in a way that's that is absolutely the most efficient. And the best way to do it, quite honestly, is to build it at scale. That's how you do it, and maintain it at scale. So TVA is doing a lot of work in this area. If you look at what's happening on our system, what you're seeing is a lot more solar going in, whether it's TVA developing that, or whether it is TVA in association with the local power company, or whether it is a new entity coming into the Tennessee Valley that wants new to the world solar as part of their power mix. So then there's a lot going on in that area, but at this point we need to stick to our knitting and be really focused on how we get these homes more energy efficient and help those families.
Well, Frank, thank you so much for such an enlightening conversation. I really enjoyed it. I want to thank our audience for joining us today and sticking with us throughout this hour. In closing, I want to remind folks we'll be sending the recording and to everyone who registered so you can look at it. It'll also be posted on the website. And I believe Sarah's going to drop some links in the chat. We'd love your feedback via a brief survey on today's webinar. We have another member-led webinar planned on Wednesday, November 10th. It's about advancing electric transportation and how to leverage federal support in the Southeast. You'll hear from expert panelists with Atlas Public Policy, Green Lots, and another Tennessee partner, the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation, on the status of federal legislation, how to develop successful proposals, and what state agencies, local governments, utilities, and the private sector in the Southeast need to do to fully leverage this moment. If you're not currently a SIA member and interested in becoming one, please reach out to our Director of Membership and Diversity Integration, Pamela Pham, or visit us at siaalliance.org/membership. With that, I'm going to close us out today. Again, thanking Frank and our audience. I wish you a great rest of your day, and goodbye.